Moonpetal, not silnende, nesoba niowa, nistasid, kisia, dad war. A fantasy sleep story, presented by Bedtime Stories. Make yourself comfortable, close your eyes, take a slow, deep breath. And now, let the story begin. The world was a tapestry woven from shadows and starlight when the moon was high. In the ancient lands of Eldoria, where mountains touched the clouds and rivers sang old songs to the stones, lay the Whispering Woods. It wasn't just a name. The trees truly whispered, their leaves rustling with secrets carried on the wind, tales of forgotten ages and magic that still hummed beneath the roots. Every creature, from the smallest glowworm to the majestic antlered stags, knew the woods held a deeper soul, a breathing presence that watched over all. At the very edge of these magnificent woods, in a cottage nestled amongst ivy-clad stones and fragrant honeysuckle, lived a girl named Lyra. She was a wisp of a thing, with hair the color of twilight and eyes that held the deep, reflective pools of a still forest lake. While other children of the nearby village of Silverstream chased sunbeams in the meadows or spun tales by the hearth, Lyra found her truest companions in the soft murmur of the night and the silent counsel of the stars. She wasn't afraid of the dark. To her, it was merely a different kind of light full of shimmering possibilities. Lyra lived with her grandmother, Elara, a woman whose face was etched with the wisdom of 1,000 sunsets and whose hands knew the language of every herb and healing root. Elara understood Lyra's quiet nature, her affinity for the moon-drenched hours. She never chided Lyra for slipping out of bed when the silver orb hung highest, but instead would leave a mug of warm milk by her window, knowing her granddaughter would soon return, eyes bright with the wonders she'd witnessed. "The night is a gentle teacher, child," Elara would often say, stirring a fragrant stew over the fire. "It shows us what the sun's bright gaze often hides, the subtle dance of unseen things, the quiet strength of growing magic." Lyra absorbed these words like the thirsty earth drinks dew. She spent her days helping her grandmother tend their small garden, gathering berries, and learning the names of flowers, but her heart truly awakened when the first star pricked the darkening sky. Then she would steal away to her favorite spot, a moss-covered log at the edge of the Whispering Woods where the ancient oaks formed a natural archway. From there, she could watch the moon climb, listen to the hoot of the tawny owl, and feel the cool, clean breath of the forest on her face. It wasn't just the quiet beauty that drew Lyra. It was a deeper sense of connection. The woods felt alive to her, in a way it didn't seem to for others. She could almost hear the roots breathing, the sap flowing, the slow, deliberate pulse of ancient life. Sometimes she would press her palm against the rough bark of an old oak, and a faint warmth would seep into her, a comforting hum that resonated deep within her bones. Animals seemed to sense it too. A curious fox once nudged her hand, and a baby deer, separated from its mother, had allowed Lyra to guide it back with gentle whispers. Elara had told her stories of the forest, of dryads who slumbered within the oldest trees, of sprite folk who danced on moonbeams, and of the rare, potent magic that occasionally bloomed under specific celestial alignments. "The moon is not merely a light in the sky, Lyra love," her grandmother had explained one evening, tracing patterns in the condensation on her window pane. "She is a guardian, a weaver of dreams, and sometimes a revealer of wonders. Her light can awaken what sleeps." Lyra knew this to be true. She had seen the forest floor shimmer with an ethereal glow after a particularly bright full moon, tiny motes of what Elara called moon dust swirling like miniature galaxies. She had watched flowers, usually closed, unfurl their petals in the pale light, releasing fragrances that were never present during the day. There was an unspoken agreement between Lyra and the woods, a mutual respect and understanding that transcended words. One particular evening, the air itself seemed to hum with an extraordinary energy. It was the night of the Whisper Moon, a rare celestial event that occurred only once in a generation. On this night, the moon, usually a solitary orb, was flanked by two smaller shimmering companions, casting an unearthly, silver-blue light over Eldoria. The sky was a dizzying canvas of stars, brighter and more numerous than Lyra had ever seen, as if the veil between worlds had thinned. Lyra felt an irresistible pull, a deep, resonant thrumming in her chest that echoed the whisper of the woods. It was more than curiosity. It was a calling, a gentle but firm tug on her very soul. She slipped from her bed, her bare feet silent on the cool floorboards, leaving behind the warmth of her cottage for the beckoning mystery outside. The air was crisp and sweet, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. The whisper moon bathed the woods in an iridescent glow, turning familiar paths into shimmering tunnels of silver and shadow. Lyra didn't feel afraid. Instead, a sense of profound peace settled over her, mixed with an exhilarating anticipation. This was a night for magic, a night for discovery. She walked deeper than she ever had before, past the moss-covered log, past the ancient oaks that marked her usual boundary. The trees here were taller, their branches interlaced so tightly that only slivers of the moon-drenched sky peeked through. The whispers of the woods grew louder, not disjointed rustles, but a symphony of soft murmurs, as if the forest itself were breathing a collective sigh. Tiny luminescent fungi glowed along the path, guiding her like a scattering of fallen stars. Her path led her to a narrow deer trail, barely visible, winding its way through a dense thicket of silver-leaf ferns. The air grew cooler, imbued with a strange sweet scent she couldn't quite place, like night-blooming jasmine, but with an earthier, more ancient undertone. The thrumming in her chest intensified, vibrating through her fingertips. Suddenly, the path opened up. Lyra gasped softly. Before her lay a hidden clearing, a perfect circle of emerald moss, untouched by human foot. In the center, a pool of water, impossibly still and clear, reflected the three moons above like a liquid mirror. Ancient, gnarled trees, with trunks wider than her cottage, formed a protective circle around the clearing, their branches heavy with glowing moss and delicate bell-shaped flowers that pulsed with a soft inner light. But it was not the luminous flora, nor the shimmering pool that stole Lyra's breath. It was what bloomed in the very heart of the clearing, directly beside the pool. There, nestled amongst the moss, was a single flower unlike anything she had ever seen, or even imagined. It was slender and elegant, its stem a delicate silver that seemed to absorb and radiate the moonlight. Its petals, however, were the true marvel. They were not of a single color, but a swirling, shifting tapestry of iridescent hues, deep indigo bleeding into soft lavender, then into a pearlescent white, edged with a faint, silvery luminescence. As Lyra watched, mesmerized, the colors seemed to undulate, pulsing gently like a slow, ethereal heartbeat. Each petal was translucent, so fine and delicate it looked as if it were spun from solidified moonlight itself. And in the very center of the flower, a cluster of golden stamens glowed with a soft, warm light, casting a tiny halo around its heart. This was no ordinary blossom. This was magic made manifest. Lyra took a tentative step closer, her heart beating a drum against her ribs. The flower seemed to hum, a silent vibration that resonated deep within her. She felt an overwhelming sense of recognition, as if she had been searching for this very sight all her life. It was fragile yet powerful, radiating an ancient, serene energy that filled the clearing. This was it. This had to be the Moonpetal. Elara had whispered stories of such a flower, a legend of a blossom that bloomed only under the rarest of moon alignments, said to hold the very essence of lunar magic. It was believed to appear only to those with a pure heart and a deep connection to the night's gentle mysteries. Lyra had always dismissed it as a beautiful fable, a grandmother's tale to lull her to sleep. But here it was, real and breathtaking, pulsating with a life of its own. As she drew nearer, a single petal, caught by a whisper of wind that only she could feel, detached itself from the flower and floated gently towards her. It didn't fall to the ground, but hovered for a moment before her outstretched hand, shimmering with all the colors of the whisper moon. Lyra reached out, her fingers trembling slightly, and the petal settled softly into her palm. It was impossibly light, like spun air, yet it felt warm, almost alive. As her skin touched its surface, a jolt, not of electricity, but of pure, crystalline energy, coursed through her. A kaleidoscope of images, fleeting and indistinct, flashed through her mind, shimmering landscapes, ancient glyphs, a sense of immense power and deep, slumbering sorrow. Then, just as quickly as it came, the sensation faded, leaving behind a lingering warmth and a profound sense of wonder. The petal in her hand pulsed once more, then gently dissolved into a shower of silver dust that sparkled for a moment before vanishing into the night air. Lyra stared at her empty palm, then back at the Moonpetal, which continued to glow with serene majesty. It was as if the flower had offered her a greeting, a brief, wordless communication. She felt a surge of emotions, awe, humility, and a strange, powerful sense of responsibility. This flower, this living jewel of moonlight, was more than just a beautiful rarity. It felt like a key, a beginning. A shiver ran down her spine, not from cold, but from the sudden awareness of something vast and ancient stirring. The air in the clearing seemed to thicken, and the subtle murmurs of the woods grew slightly more insistent. It was as if the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting. The Moonpetal pulsed brighter for a moment, and Lyra distinctly felt a thought, clear as a bell, resonate in her mind. While waken, remember, protect. Sen. The words weren't spoken, yet she understood them with absolute clarity. The Moonpetal was calling to her. It wasn't just a discovery, it was an invitation, a quest. But a quest for what? And why her? She looked around the clearing, seeing it now with new eyes. This was a place of power, a sanctuary. And the Moonpetal, its silent guardian, now seemed to be asking for guardianship. The Whisper Moon began its slow descent, its triple glow softening as the first faint hint of dawn, a pearly gray, began to paint the eastern sky. The magical luminescence of the clearing, though still potent, began to dim slightly. Lyra knew she couldn't stay. She had to return home, to her grandmother, to the world of waking. But she couldn't leave the Moonpetal, not truly. Its image was seared into her mind, its silent call echoing in her heart. She took one last, lingering look at the luminous flower, its beauty an ache in her chest. She promised it, silently, that she would return. She didn't know how or why, but she knew, with uncertainty that settled deep in her soul, that her life had changed irrevocably this night. The secrets of the Whispering Woods, and perhaps of Eldoria itself, were beginning to unfurl, and Lyra, the quiet girl who loved the moon, was now inextricably bound to them. She turned, leaving the clearing with a new purpose stirring within her, the silent command of the Moonpetal guiding her steps. The journey, she knew, had just begun. The journey, she knew, had just begun. The Moonpetal, nestled close to her heart, pulsed with a soft internal warmth, a silent compass guiding her steps. It didn't glow outwardly, yet Lyra felt its subtle light illuminating a path through the deepening shadows of the Whispering Woods. The trees, which had always seemed a tangled, impenetrable wall, now parted for her with an almost deferential grace, their ancient branches seeming to whisper encouragement rather than warnings. The air grew cooler, carrying the scent of damp earth and something else, something crystalline and sweet, like frozen moonlight. She walked for what felt like hours, the familiar paths blurring into forgotten trails. The forest floor, once a tapestry of fallen leaves and gnarled roots, began to transform. Moss, usually a dull emerald, now shimmered with an ethereal bioluminescence, tracing intricate patterns that seemed to point her forward. Small, bell-shaped flowers, translucent and frail, chimed softly with every breeze, their melodies weaving into a hushed symphony that spoke of ancient magic. Lyra felt no fear, only a profound sense of wonder and a quiet determination. The Moonpetal's presence was a steady anchor, a promise that she was exactly where she needed to be. As she ventured deeper, the woods themselves seemed to come alive in new ways. The whispers of the trees grew more distinct, not just rustling leaves, but murmurs that brushed against her mind, too faint to form words, yet conveying a sense of timeless observation, of deep-seated knowledge. She felt eyes upon her, not predatory but watchful, curious. Strange, glowing motes of light, like fireflies born of starlight, danced in the air, gathering ahead of her, then dispersing as if leading the way. Suddenly, the ground beneath her feet began to slope downwards, and the air grew thick with a rich, earthy scent, mingled with the clean tang of pure water. The trees here were older still, their trunks wider than a small cottage, their canopies so dense that only slivers of the actual moon's light pierced through, dappling the forest floor in shifting silver. This was a place untouched, a sanctuary where time seemed to fold in on itself. She emerged into a wide, circular clearing, unlike any she had ever seen. In its center lay a pool, perfectly still and utterly black, reflecting the few scattered stars above like polished obsidian. Around its edge, enormous, ancient stones stood sentinel, their surfaces covered in intricate carvings that glowed faintly with the same inner light as the Moonpetal in her hand. These weren't mere carvings. They were runes, symbols of a magic far older than any Lyra knew, pulsing with a slow, rhythmic beat that vibrated in her very bones. The moonpetal in her hand began to hum, a low, resonant thrum that resonated within her chest. It intensified, growing warmer, and a soft, silvery glow finally emanated from its delicate petals, illuminating the pool. As its light touched the water, the black surface rippled, not with wind, but with an internal stirring. The reflections of the stars began to swirl, elongating, then coalescing into shifting images. Lyra knelt at the edge of the pool, her breath catching in her throat. The moonpetal pulsed steadily, its light drawing images from the depths. She saw fragmented visions, like shattered pieces of a dream. First, a vast, shimmering cityscape, built of crystal and light, far grander than any village or town she knew in Aldoria. Figures moved within it, cloaked in robes woven with starlight, their faces serene, their hands weaving threads of pure light. They seemed to be performing a ritual, their movements slow and deliberate, channeling energy from the moon itself, which hung enormous and luminous in the sky above them. Then the vision shifted. The sky darkened, not with night, but with an unnatural pallor. The moon, once so vibrant, began to dim, its light fading, growing sickly and weak. Panic rippled through the crystal city. The robed figures moved with urgency now, their serene expressions replaced by worry. They pointed towards a distant, jagged range of mountains, where a shadow, vast and formless, seemed to be seeping into the world, swallowing the light. The images flickered faster, blurring with sorrow and desperation. Lyra saw the robed figures gathering, their hands now holding luminous spheres, like miniature moons. They chanted, their voices echoing in her mind, though she heard no actual sound. One figure, taller and more regal than the rest, stepped forward, holding a single, glowing blossom, impossibly familiar. It was a moonpetal, identical to the one in Lyra's hand, except this one pulsed with an almost blinding intensity. The figure looked up at the dimming moon, then down at the moonpetal, a profound sorrow etched on their face. With a gesture they released the moonpetal, which soared upwards, becoming a beacon, a single point of pure light against the encroaching darkness. As it ascended, the vision dissolved into swirling starlight, then faded, leaving the pool's surface still and black once more. Lyra stared at her reflection in the silent water, her heart pounding. The moonpetal in her hand now pulsed with a quieter, steady rhythm, as if exhausted by the effort of revealing such ancient history. The visions were fragmented, but their meaning resonated with a chilling clarity. The moon, the very source of the magic of Eldoria, was not merely a distant orb, but a living wellspring of power, and it had once been in peril. The moonpetal she held was not just a magical flower, it was a relic, a key, perhaps even a fragment of that ancient powerful blossom she had seen. She looked around the clearing, at the ancient runes on the stones, at the deep, silent pool. This was not just a clearing, it was a scrying pool, a window into Eldoria's forgotten past, guarded by the oldest trees of the Whispering Woods. The crystal city, the robed figures, who were they? The moonweavers? The starlight keepers? And the shadow that threatened the moon, had it been vanquished, or merely held at bay? A fresh wave of understanding washed over her. The moonpetal hadn't just chosen her because she loved the moon. It had chosen her because the time was ripe, because the echoes of that ancient threat were stirring once more. Her certainty from earlier solidified into a profound conviction. She was not just a girl who loved the moon, she was a girl who had been called to protect it. But how? The visions had shown her the E-problemy, not the IS solution. Or had they? The robed figures had created the moonpetal she now held. They had once guarded the moon's light. Perhaps they, or their descendants, still existed. As if in answer to her unspoken question, the moonpetal in her hand gave a gentle tug, a subtle directional pull, not towards any of the forest paths she had known, but deeper still, towards a part of the woods she had always instinctively avoided. It pointed north, towards the distant, jagged peaks of the Crystal Mountains, a place whispered about in hushed tones, said to be home to ancient reclusive orders and magic, so potent it could reshape the very land. Lyra rose, the coolness of the night air a sharp contrast to the warmth radiating from the moonpetal. The fear she might have felt, venturing into such unknown and formidable territory, was eclipsed by the sheer weight of purpose. The Moonpetal was her guide, the visions her story, and the moon itself, her silent patron. She walked away from the scrying pool, leaving the ancient clearing in its hushed solitude. The bioluminescent moss still pulsed, the bellflowers still chimed, but now their music seemed to carry a new urgency, a clarion call. The Whispering Woods were no longer just a place of quiet wonder. They were a living history book, and Lyra was now walking through its most vital chapters. The path ahead was steeper, the ground rockier. The trees began to thin, replaced by gnarled hardy evergreens that clung to barren slopes. She could feel the elevation increasing, the air growing thinner, crisper. The faint crystalline scent she had noticed earlier intensified, becoming almost overwhelming, like breathing in pure, cold light. As she ascended, the sky above her opened up, revealing a breathtaking expanse of stars, far more numerous and brilliant than she had ever seen from her village. The moon, still waxing towards fullness, hung like a pearl, its light pouring down in a silvery cascade that seemed to draw her upwards. She walked through patches of snow, even though it was late spring in the lowlands, a testament to the altitude and the unique climate of the Crystal Mountains. After what felt like another eternity of walking, her muscles aching but her spirit unflagging, Lyra noticed a strange phenomenon. The rocks around her began to shimmer, not with the soft glow of moss, but with an internal structural luminescence. They were not ordinary rocks. They were crystals, veins of quartz and amethyst and tourmaline running through the granite, catching the moonlight and refracting it into 1,000 tiny rainbows. The Moonpetal pulsed faster now, its warmth spreading through her arm, tingling at her fingertips. The air thrummed with a palpable energy, a sensation she had never experienced before, like the world itself was singing. She knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that she was close. The trail ended abruptly at the mouth of a narrow crevice in the side of a towering peak. The opening was barely wide enough for her to squeeze through, and the air within was even colder, carrying the scent of ancient stone and something else, something like ozone and pure magic. Hesitantly, Lyra stepped inside. More. The passage sloped downwards, winding through a labyrinth of natural crystal formations. The walls glittered with a million facets, reflecting the Moonpetal's soft glow and the sparse moonlight filtering from above, transforming the dark tunnel into a dazzling kaleidoscope of light. Each step she took echoed strangely, as if the crystals themselves were listening. She reached a chamber, vast and cavernous, its ceiling lost in shadow, its floor a smooth expanse of polished, glittering stone. In the center, a towering structure rose, not carved, but grown. A colossal crystal spire, reaching towards the unseen ceiling, radiating a soft, steady sapphire light. Around its base, scattered like fallen petals, were dozens of smaller, intricate crystal formations, each pulsing with its own faint luminescence. And then she saw them. Figures, shrouded in robes the color of midnight, moved among the crystal formations. They were taller than any human she had ever seen, their movements fluid and silent. Their faces were obscured by deep hoods, but Lyra could sense their immense age, their profound wisdom. They were the robed figures from her vision, no doubt. The Moonweavers, the Starlight Keepers, or whatever name they carried now. One of them, standing closest to the central spire, turned slowly towards her. It was as if they had known she was coming. As the figure moved, the sapphire light of the spire caught on the edge of their hood, revealing not skin, but something luminous beneath, like starlight contained within a delicate, translucent veil. Lyra felt a profound reverence, a sense of awe that made her knees weak. She had found them. The guardians of the moon's light, the keepers of ancient secrets. The Moonpetal in her hand now shone with a gentle, unwavering glow, a silent introduction. The robed figure raised a hand, not in greeting, but in a gesture that seemed to command silence, to invite presence. Lyra felt no fear, only a deep sense of belonging, a recognition of destiny. The journey through the Whispering Woods had led her here, to the heart of the Crystal Mountains, to the very threshold of a new understanding. The secrets of Eldoria, and her own role within them, were about to be revealed in earnest. She took a hesitant step forward, leaving the narrow passage behind, the vast echoing chamber swallowing her whole. The moon, visible now through a high natural aperture in the chamber's ceiling, cast a single, unbroken beam of silver light directly onto the towering crystal spire, as if confirming her arrival. The moon, visible now through a high natural aperture in the chamber's ceiling, cast a single unbroken beam of silver light directly onto the towering crystal spire, as if confirming her arrival. The chamber was far larger than Eldoria could have imagined, its crystalline walls shimmering with a subtle inner luminescence that seemed to breathe, a soft, pulsating heartbeat of light. Jagged, elegant formations of amethyst, quartz, and emerald-hued crystal jutted from the floor and ceiling like the teeth of a slumbering giant, catching and refracting the moonbeam into 1,000 dancing motes of color. The air itself felt different here, crisp, clean, imbued with a faint, sweet scent she couldn't quite place, like ozone and forgotten flowers. A profound silence reigned, broken only by the faint, rhythmic eye thrum that seemed to emanate from the towering spire at the chamber's heart. The spire, impossibly tall, tapered gently towards the unseen ceiling, its surface a kaleidoscope of shifting light, absorbing the moonbeam and radiating it back with amplified brilliance. It wasn't just a crystal, it was a living monument, a nexus of energy, its facets swirling with an inner fire, a gentle, vibrant hum vibrating through the very soles of her worn boots. She felt a pull, an undeniable draw, as if an invisible thread connected her to its luminous core. Hesitantly, Eldoria took another step, then another, her fear slowly giving way to an overwhelming sense of wonder and a strange familiarity. It was as if she had always known this place, deep in her bones, a whisper from a forgotten dream. The chamber didn't feel cold or forbidding, but rather like a vast, ancient sanctuary waiting for her. As she drew closer, the base of the spire resolved into a circular plinth of intricately carved crystal, depicting swirling patterns and symbols she instinctively recognized as the ancient runes of Eldoria, runes often found in the oldest texts, believed to hold power, though their true meaning had long been lost to most. Here, they pulsed with a soft, warm light. When she was but a few paces away, the spire's hum intensified, a deep, resonant chord that vibrated through her chest, making her heart beat in harmony. The air around it shimmered, and from the swirling light within its depths, a faint, ethereal mist began to coalesce, swirling like cosmic dust. It was not cold, but comforting, like a gentle embrace. "Welcome, Eldoria," a voice whispered, not with her ears but directly into her mind. It was a voice like the sigh of the wind through ancient trees, like the murmur of a hidden spring, rich with the wisdom of ages and imbued with a profound, unwavering calm. "You have arrived, as was foretold." Eldoria gasped, a small, involuntary sound lost in the vastness. She looked around, searching for the source, but there was no one else. The mist swirled, thickening, and within its luminous depths, vague shapes began to form, shimmering outlines of figures, like memories made tangible. Who are you?" she stammered, her own voice sounding thin and reedy in comparison to the majestic whisper. "We are the collective consciousness of this place, the living memory of Eldoria," the voice replied, its cadence soothing. "We are the Heartstone, the keeper of the lore, the nexus of the crystal mountains. And we have awaited you." The mist solidified further, resolving into a breathtaking tableau. Before her, figures began to emerge from the light, not solid beings, but luminous apparitions, translucent and shimmering. There were men and women of immense stature, robed in garments that seemed woven from starlight, their faces ageless, their eyes filled with profound wisdom. They stood in a silent circle around the base of the spire, their hands gently outstretched towards it. "These," the Heartstone explained, "are the echoes of the first weavers, the original guardians of the Heartstone, those who first learned to channel the world's magic through its crystal heart." As the voice spoke, the figures bowed their heads in unison, a silent, reverent gesture. Eldoria felt a strange wave of emotion wash over her, awe, respect, and a burgeoning sense of destiny. "The first weavers?" she repeated softly. They were real, not just legends." "All legends hold a kernel of truth, child," the voice responded. "And the truths of Eldoria are far grander than any tale. You stand at the very source of them." Then the tableau shifted. The first weavers dissolved, and new images swirled into being. She saw visions of a lush, vibrant world, teeming with impossible flora and fauna, soaring cities built of living crystal and light, powered by the very energy that now hummed around her. She saw beings flying on wings of pure energy, shaping mountains with a thought, drawing rivers from the sky. It was a world of unimaginable magic, far beyond anything she had ever read in dusty scrolls or heard in hushed whispers. This was Eldoria, in the Age of Radiance, the Heartstone narrated, its voice filled with a bittersweet longing. A time when the veil between worlds was thin, and magic flowed freely, coursing through every living thing. The Heartstone was the anchor, the grand conduit, ensuring the balance and prosperity of all. Eldoria watched, mesmerized as the visions played out. She saw the first weavers, not just as static figures, but in motion, tending to vast gardens of glowing flora, weaving intricate spells of light, communicating with creatures of pure energy. Their faces were serene, filled with purpose. And then, what happened? She asked, a knot forming in her stomach as the vibrant images began to flicker, growing dimmer. The Heartstone's hum deepened, a mournful chord. Hubris, ambition, a thirst for power that transcended balance. Some among the weavers, brilliant yet misguided, sought to harness the Heartstone's full, untamed power, believing they could elevate Eldoria to an even higher plane of existence, beyond the natural order. The visions darkened. The vibrant cities began to crack, their light dimming. The flying beings fell from the sky. Swirling shadows, like tendrils of smoke, began to creep across the landscape, consuming the light. The beautiful, glowing flora withered and died. They fractured the veil, the Heartstone explained, its voice now tinged with sorrow. They attempted to draw upon energies from beyond our world, energies that were chaotic and destructive. The Heartstone, in its desperate attempt to contain this uncontrolled power, became overloaded. It fractured not physically, but energetically, its core stability compromised. A great cataclysm ensued, known as the Sundering. Eldoria watched in horror as the beautiful world shattered. Mountains crumbled, seas boiled, and the very sky ripped open, revealing a terrifying void filled with swirling, malevolent energies. The luminous figures of the first weavers struggled valiantly, desperately trying to mend the damage, their efforts appearing futile against the overwhelming destruction. She saw them one by one, sacrificing themselves, pouring their own life force into the Heartstone, trying to stabilize it, to repair the fractured veil. Many perished. The Heartstone's voice was heavy with grief. But their sacrifice was not in vain. They managed to seal the most dangerous energies, to mend the veil just enough to prevent total annihilation. But Eldoria was forever changed. The flow of magic was drastically reduced. The grand cities crumbled into dust, and the knowledge of the weavers became fragmented, lost to time, or deliberately hidden to prevent such a catastrophe from ever happening again. The visions faded, replaced by swirling patterns of light that seemed to depict the slow, arduous healing of the world. Forests grew back, albeit smaller, less vibrant. Rivers found new paths. But the magic, the sheer, boundless energy of the Age of Radiance was gone, replaced by the faint, elusive whispers of power she knew in her own time. "So, the legends are true," Eldoria whispered, feeling a profound sadness for the lost world. The great silence that the ancient texts speak of, it was the Sundering. Indeed, the Heartstone confirmed. The world you know, the world of scattered magic and forgotten lore, is but a shadow of its former self. But life persisted. And with life, hope, the weavers, before their ultimate sacrifice, enacted a final, desperate plan. The mist swirled once more, and a single, luminous figure coalesced before her. It was a woman, her face serene and strong, her eyes burning with a gentle, intelligent fire. Her hair, woven with strands of light, flowed around her like a living halo. Eldoria felt an uncanny sense of recognition, a deep, resonant echo within her very being. "This is Ilara," the Heartstone revealed. "The last High Weaver and your direct ancestor." She foresaw the coming of the Sundering but knew it could not be entirely averted. So, she established a lineage, a bloodline, imbued with a special connection to the Heartstone, a dormant spark of the ancient magic, passed down through generations. A spark that would awaken when the time was right, when Eldoria truly needed it once more. Eldoria stared at the shimmering image of Ilara, her mind reeling. Her ancestor? A High Weaver? This was far beyond anything she could have imagined. Her family had always been simple folk, keepers of bees and humble healers, living on the fringes of the Whispering Woods. "Why me?" Eldoria finally managed to ask, her voice barely a whisper. I'm just me. I have no special powers. I've only ever felt a faint hum, a sensitivity to the world's magic, not the grand abilities of a weaver. Elara's luminous form seemed to smile, a gentle, reassuring expression. Because the spark is not merely about power, Eldoria. It is about balance, about understanding, about the heart that seeks harmony. Your innate empathy, your connection to the natural world, your unwavering curiosity. These are the true signs of a weaver. The power is latent, waiting for the right catalyst. The Heartstone's voice returned. The world is once again out of balance, Eldoria. Not with the raw, destructive force of the sundering, but with a creeping malaise. The magic, already diminished, is fading further. The natural world sickens. The ancient ley lines, the veins of magic that crisscross Eldoria, are growing stagnant. And a new darkness stirs, drawn by this weakening. The visions shifted again, showing glimpses of shadowy figures, not fully formed, but radiating an oppressive chill. Twisted, gnarled trees, their leaves black and brittle. Rivers, running sluggish and dark. A pervasive sense of despair settling over the land. These are the shadows of the void, the Heartstone explained, a note of urgency now entering its voice. Remnants of the chaotic energies that were sealed away during the sundering. They feed on fear, on despair, on the fading magic. They seek to fully fracture the veil and unleash utter chaos upon Eldoria. Eldoria felt a cold dread creep into her heart. This wasn't just ancient history. This was Nov. This was why she felt the land sickness, why her own burgeoning magic had been restless. "What can I do?" she asked, her voice stronger now, filled with a newfound resolve. The fear was still there, but it was overshadowed by a fierce protectiveness for her world, for the people she loved. Elara's ethereal form stepped slightly forward, her luminous hand reaching out towards Eldoria, though it passed through her. "You are the key, Eldoria, the last thread of the High Weaver's lineage, the one destined to reawaken the Heartstone's full potential and restore the balance. You must relearn the ancient ways, reweave the fractured ley lines, and seal the shadows of the void before they consume everything." But how? Eldoria looked around the vast, silent chamber, at the towering spire. "I don't know how to do any of that." "The Heartstone will guide you," the collective voice replied. "Its knowledge is vast, its memory infinite, but it requires a living conduit, a conscious mind to direct its power, to interpret its wisdom. That conduit is you, Eldoria." The moonbeam intensified, bathing Eldoria in its silver glow, and the spire pulsed with renewed vigor. The swirling mist coalesced around her, no longer just a visual projection, but a tangible presence, warm and humming with power. She felt a tingling sensation spread through her limbs, a lightness in her chest, as if she were breathing pure starlight. To begin, the Heartstone instructed, "You must first connect fully. Touch the spire, Eldoria. Let your essence merge with its own. Open your mind, your heart, your very soul, and allow the ancient currents to flow through you." Eldoria hesitated for only a moment. This was it. The moment of truth. The culmination of her journey, the answer to the whispers in her dreams. Taking a deep breath, she extended her hand, her fingers trembling slightly, and pressed her palm against the cool, smooth surface of the towering crystal spire. The moment her skin made contact, an incredible surge of energy coursed through her. It wasn't painful, but exhilarating, like 1,000 tiny stars exploding within her veins. Images, sounds, emotions, and raw knowledge flooded her mind, a torrent of information so vast and ancient it threatened to overwhelm her. She saw the intricate patterns of magic flowing beneath the earth, felt the life force of every tree, heard the song of distant rivers, tasted the salt of forgotten oceans. She was connected, not just to the spire but to the very essence of Eldoria itself. The chamber around her flared with light, the crystalline walls pulsating in rhythm with her own racing heart. The echoes of the first weavers reappeared, now clearer, more solid, their faces alight with a silent joy. Elara's luminous form stood directly opposite her, a look of profound pride and hope on her ethereal face. "Breathe, Eldoria." The Heartstone's voice resonated within her, a gentle anchor in the storm of sensation. "Let it flow. Do not resist. Embrace the connection." She focused on the voice, on the calming rhythm, and slowly, painstakingly, she began to manage the influx. The raw power resolved into coherent streams of knowledge. She understood the language of the ancient runes, not just intellectually, but intuitively. She saw the intricate web of the ley lines, not as abstract concepts, but as glowing rivers of energy, some vibrant, some dim, some completely choked. She felt the pulse of the world's magic, weak, but still there, a fragile flicker waiting to be rekindled. The mist around her intensified, swirling into intricate patterns that mirrored the flow of energy she now perceived. Her own hands, pressed against the spire, began to glow with a soft inner luminescence, mirroring the spire's own light. "You are now linked, Eldoria," the Heartstone announced, its voice filled with a quiet triumph. "The spark has ignited. The Weaver's blood awakens. You are no longer merely a descendant but a living bridge between the ancient power and the needs of the present." A new vision unfolded within her mind, clearer and more immediate than the historical panoramas. She saw the map of Eldoria, overlaid with glowing lines of magic. Most of the lines were faint, almost invisible, but a few pulsed with a weak, desperate light. And at certain points along these lines, dark, swirling patches appeared, the shadows of the void, growing larger, spreading their blight. "The ley lines are the arteries of Eldoria's magic," the Heartstone explained. "They must be cleansed and rewoven. The shadows must be banished. This will not be a task of brute force, but of harmony, of understanding, of awakening the dormant magic within the land itself." Elara's ethereal form stepped closer, her voice now directly in Eldoria's mind, a gentle maternal presence. "Your first task, my descendant, is to journey to the Sunken Grove. It is the closest major nexus point, a place where the magic has not yet fully faded, but where the shadows have begun to take root. There, you will find a test and your first lesson in the art of reweaving." The image of the Sunken Grove solidified in her mind, a place of ancient, moss-draped trees, a shimmering lake, and a sense of profound stillness, now marred by tendrils of darkness. She felt a flicker of fear, but it was quickly replaced by a burgeoning sense of purpose. "How will I know what to do?" Eldoria asked, her voice still resonating with the spire's energy. "You will know," the Heartstone assured her. "The knowledge is now within you. The Heartstone will guide your instincts, illuminate your path. But you must also seek out the ancient texts, the fragments of lore hidden in forgotten libraries, and guarded by those who still remember glimpses of the old ways. They will provide the wisdom you need to interpret the Heartstone's guidance, and to master the awakening magic within you." As the connection deepened, Eldoria felt a profound change occurring within her. Her senses sharpened, the world outside the crystal chamber seemed to expand, revealing layers of energy and life she had never perceived before. She could feel the subtle shifts in the earth beneath her feet, the distant beat of a bird's wing, the silent growth of a root far below. Her body felt infused with a vibrant humming energy, as if her very cells were singing. She was no longer just Eldoria, the curious girl from the Whispering Woods. She was Eldoria, the weaver, the nascent guardian of the Heartstone, the last hope for a world teetering on the brink. The weight of this realization was immense, but so was the surge of inner strength that accompanied it. The moonbeam, which had been so steady, began to shift, slowly moving across the chamber as the night wore on. The light on the spire softened, though the connection remained strong, a vibrant current flowing between her and the ancient crystal. "You have taken the first step," the Heartstone's voice said, a note of satisfaction now present. "Rest, Eldoria. Absorb what you have learned. The journey ahead will be long and arduous, but you do not walk it alone. The Heartstone is with you. The echoes of the Weavers watch over you, and the spirit of Elara guides your every step." Eldoria slowly, reluctantly, withdrew her hand from the spire. The instant her skin lost contact, the intense surge of energy subsided, leaving behind a deep, resonant hum within her, a persistent echo of the connection. The luminous mist around her dissipated, and the echoes of the Weavers, along with Elara's image, faded back into the swirling light of the spire. The chamber returned to its more subdued, though still breathtaking, glow. The thrumming of the Heartstone was softer now, a gentle heartbeat in the vast silence. Eldoria stood there, alone once more, but profoundly changed. She looked down at her hands, still faintly glowing, then up at the magnificent spire, no longer just a beautiful crystal, but a living, breathing entity, a source of unimaginable power and ancient wisdom. Her mind was a whirl of new knowledge, of ancient history, of daunting tasks. The Sunken Grove. Ley lines, stone mountains, Oh? Shadows of the Void. It was a quest, grander and more perilous than any she had ever dreamed of. She felt a mix of trepidation and exhilaration. Her journey had only just begun. The secrets of Eldoria were indeed revealing themselves, and her role within them was clear. The path forward, though challenging, was illuminated. She knew where she had to go, and she knew, deep in her heart, that she had to succeed. The fate of Eldoria rested upon her shoulders. She took a deep breath, the air now feeling less like ozone, and more like the living breath of the world. With a renewed sense of purpose, she turned, her gaze already looking towards the hidden exit, towards the world outside this sacred chamber, towards the dawn that would bring her first true steps as a weaver. The whispered call of the sunken grove already beckoned. The hidden exit from the sacred chamber was not a grand archway, but a shimmering curtain of mist, woven from moonlight and the scent of ancient earth. Elara passed through it, feeling the world shift around her from the cool, contained magic of the chamber to the vast, wild, breathing expanse of Eldoria. The dawn was indeed breaking, painting the eastern sky in hues of rose and gold, chasing the last lingering stars from the west. Her path led her first through the whispering silverwood, where trees with bark like polished moonlight stood sentinel. Their leaves, a pale shimmering green, rustled with secrets as she passed, and Elara felt the faint, comforting brush of the weave through them. A soft, melodic hum that vibrated in her bones. She practiced simple acts of weaving as she walked, coaxing dew-kissed petals to glow with inner light, guiding wayward streams back to their intended courses, and mending small cracks in ancient stones. Each successful attempt sent a thrill of exhilaration through her, a confirmation of the power that now flowed through her veins. Yet beneath the joy, a solemn awareness of her immense responsibility pressed down. Eldoria's lifeblood was fading. These small acts were but whispers against a growing roar. Days blurred into a tapestry of sun-drenched plains, shadowed valleys, and rivers that sang with forgotten melodies. Elara slept under the open sky, wrapped in the weave's comforting embrace, and ate berries she coaxed from reluctant bushes. Her senses sharpened. She could hear the earth's slow pulse, feel the distant thrum of ley lines beneath her feet, and taste the magic in the very air. She learned to read the subtle signs of the blight, the muted colors of flowers, the silence where birds once sang, the faint, brittle quality of the weave in certain places. It was like a slowly spreading bruise, dimming the world's vibrant glow. Finally, after what felt like an age, the land began to change. The trees grew taller, their branches draped with emerald moss, and the air grew thick with the scent of damp earth and blooming water lilies. The soft gurgle of unseen springs grew louder, and the light filtering through the canopy took on an ethereal, greenish cast. She had reached the sunken grove. It was more breathtaking than any legend described. Ancient, colossal trees, their roots gnarled and thick as dragons, plunged into a vast shimmering pool that filled the heart of the grove. The water was so clear, it seemed as if the sky itself had fallen into its depths, reflecting the towering canopy and the occasional glint of sunlight. Strange, luminous fish with fins like gossamer wings swam languidly through beds of glowing algae. Yet even here, the blight's touch was evident. Patches of algae were dim and lifeless. Some of the luminous fish swam in sluggish, erratic patterns, and the water, while clear, lacked the vibrant living sparkle Elara had expected. A low, mournful hum, almost imperceptible, emanated from the very heart of the pool. As Elara approached the water's edge, a ripple spread across the surface, not from a fish, but from some unseen force. The water parted, and from its depths rose a figure. It was a being of pure water, shimmering and translucent, with eyes like deep pools and hair that flowed like a river. It was the grove's guardian, a naiad named Undine, ancient and solemn. "Welcome, weaver." Undine's voice was like the gentle rush of a stream over smooth stones, yet laced with sorrow. "We have awaited you. The heartstone of the grove, deep beneath these waters, dims. Its light, which nourishes all life here, and sends its blessings through the underground currents of Eldoria, flickers. It withers, like a flower denied the sun." Elara felt a pang in her chest. "What must I do, Undine?" The naiad gestured towards the center of the pool, where a faint, pulsating light could be seen far below the surface. "The heartstone is fed by the life currents of the weave, drawn from the earth and purified by the grove's ancient magic. But the blight, It is like a poison, clinging to these currents, choking the stone's light. You must descend. You must mend the broken connections and cleanse the blight from the heartstone itself. It is a place of deep magic, where the very pulse of Eldoria can be heard. Taking a deep breath, Ilara plunged into the cool, embracing water. It was surprisingly warm, and as she sank deeper, the pressure felt less like water and more like a gentle embrace. Her weaver's sight intensified, allowing her to see the intricate network of shimmering ley lines that converged upon the heartstone. They glowed with faint ethereal light, but many were frayed, dark, and clogged with a creeping shadow substance that pulsed with a dull, sickly energy. This was the blight. The heartstone itself was magnificent, a colossal crystal, roughly hewn, radiating soft, warm light. But its glow was uneven, and dark fissures marred its surface, spiderwebbing across its vibrant core. It pulsed weakly, like a dying heart. Ilara placed her hands upon its cool, smooth surface, closing her eyes. She reached out with her mind, with her spirit, searching for the weave within the stone. It was a daunting task. The blight was insidious, clinging to the weave's currents like burrs, draining its vitality. Ilara had to weave carefully, gently, not forcing the magic but coaxing it. She began by focusing on the fraying ley lines, visualizing them as threads of pure energy. She extended her own energy, a vibrant, golden light, and meticulously began to respin the broken strands, mending them one by one. It was slow, painstaking work, like repairing a vast invisible tapestry. Each successful mend sent a jolt of renewed power through the water, and she could feel the heartstone respond with a faint thrum. Then came the cleansing. The shadow substance was stubborn, resisting her touch. It felt cold and alien, a stark contrast to the living warmth of the weave. Ilara remembered the elder's words, "The weave is life, and life seeks balance." She didn't fight the shadow, but rather, she wove threads of pure, vibrant life magic around it, gently isolating it, then drawing it out of the ley lines. It was like pulling thorns from a living vine. As each piece of blight was extracted, it dissolved into nothingness, leaving behind a sparkling trail of pure water. She worked for what felt like hours, perhaps even days in the timeless depths. Her muscles ached. Her mind buzzed with the effort, but she pressed on, driven by the image of Eldoria healing. Finally, with a last monumental effort, she focused on the heartstone itself. The fissures were deep, the blight embedded within its very core. Ilara poured all her remaining strength, all her hope, into a single focused beam of pure radiant weave energy. She didn't just fill the cracks, she rewove the crystal structure, knitting it back together with threads of light and life. A blinding flash erupted from the heartstone, a wave of pure, revitalizing energy that surged outwards, chasing away the last vestiges of the blight from the ley lines and the waters of the sunken grove. The glowing fish darted with renewed vigor, the algae shimmered with brilliant greens and blues, and the mournful hum was replaced by a deep, resonant pulse of vibrant life. The heartstone now glowed with an unbroken, radiant light, its power radiating outwards through the earth. Ilara surfaced, gasping for breath, but her heart soared. Undine rose from the water, her form now shimmering with renewed brilliance. "You have done it, Weaver! The sunken grove sings again." Her voice was filled with joyous relief. The life currents flow true once more. From this heart, Eldoria will begin to heal. Ilara felt a profound sense of accomplishment, but also a new understanding. The blight was not just a corruption of magic, but a draining of life itself. "What caused this, Undine?" she asked, her voice hoarse. The Naiad's eyes grew distant. A great imbalance, an ancient sorrow stirring beneath the world. The heartstone here provides life, but the spirit, the harmony, the very song of Eldoria, that too is faltering. You must seek the whispering peaks, Weaver. There the spirits of the air and the echoes of ancient songs reside. They too are silenced, their melodies fractured. Undine reached out a shimmering hand and touched Ilara's forehead. A faint, silvery pattern, like the intricate flow of water, appeared there for a moment, then vanished. "This will guide your path through the windswept pass. Go, Weaver. The peaks await your song." With a renewed sense of purpose, Ilara bid farewell to the rejuvenated sunken grove. The journey to the Whispering Peaks was different, leading her north through lands that grew increasingly rugged and windswept. The air thinned, the trees became gnarled and clinging to rocky outcrops, and the ground rose sharply into towering, jagged mountains that scraped the sky. Here, the blight manifested as a creeping silence, a muffling of sound, a dullness in the ever-present winds that should have sung with vibrant energy. One evening, as she navigated a perilous mountain trail, a shadow detached itself from a towering peak and glided silently towards her. It was a griffin, majestic and formidable, with feathers the color of storm clouds and eyes like polished amber. Its talons were sharp, its beak curved, but there was an intelligence in its gaze that spoke of ancient wisdom. "You seek the peaks, little weaver." The griffin's voice was a deep rumble, carried on the wind, echoing in her mind. "The winds remember your kind. I am Arian. I have watched the silence grow. My kin, the sky guardians, feel the chill in the air, the dullness in the weave that once sang through our very feathers." Elara, though startled, felt no fear. There was a solemn dignity about Arian. "I am Elara, a weaver. I come to mend the song of the peaks." Arian landed gracefully beside her, its immense form dwarfing her. "The winds are broken, their voices fragmented. The great air heart, deep within the highest peak, weakens. Its harmony, which once balanced the very air currents of Eldoria and carried the whispers of truth, now falters. The blight here is a knot in the wind, a discordant shriek that muffles true sound." He offered his back. "Climb, weaver. The path is long, and the air grows thin for those without wings. I will carry you to the highest reaches, where the wind weavers once dwelled." Elara gratefully clambered onto Arian's broad back, clutching his feathers. With a mighty beat of his wings, they soared into the twilight sky. The world unfurled beneath them like a vast, living map. She saw the sunken grove, a distant emerald jewel, and the silverwood, a shimmering ribbon. As they climbed higher, the air grew colder, but a strange, exhilarating energy pulsed through the atmosphere, a wild, untamed magic. The whispering peaks lived up to their name. Even with Arian's mighty wing beats, Elara could hear the faint, mournful sighs of the wind, laden with forgotten memories and broken melodies. They landed on a vast flat plateau near the summit of the tallest peak, a place where the wind howled and whistled through strange, naturally formed wind chimes of crystal and stone. But the sounds were discordant, jarring, like a symphony played out of tune. "The air heart lies beyond this." Arian indicated a cavern entrance, hidden behind a swirling veil of mist. "The blight has twisted its song, and the echoes of sorrow have settled upon it. You must find the true melody, Elara. You must listen to the heart of the wind." Elara entered the cavern. It was a labyrinth of echoing tunnels, carved by eons of wind and ice. Strange, shimmering crystals grew from the walls, catching the faint light that filtered in. The air was alive with sound, but it was a cacophony: wails, whispers, discordant hums, and piercing shrieks. It was the sound of a beautiful song being torn apart. Deep within she found it, the air heart. It was not a stone like the sunken groves, but a vast swirling vortex of pure elemental air, contained within a massive chamber of polished obsidian. It pulsed with chaotic energy, throwing off bursts of freezing wind and deafening sound. At its core, Elara could see the blight, a dark, vibrating dissonance, like a false note played over and over, slowly unraveling the air heart's harmony. This task was different. It wasn't about mending physical lines, but about restoring balance to an ethereal force. Elara closed her eyes, extending her weaver's senses. She reached for the core of the air heart, ignoring the clamor, trying to find the original pure melody beneath the discord. It was like trying to hear a single, true note in a storm. She remembered Ondine's gift, the silvery pattern on her forehead. It resonated now, guiding her. It was a deep, guttural hum, a fundamental tone, like the earth's own breath. She began to weave not with physical threads, but with pure sound and vibration. She drew upon the deepest, most harmonious frequencies within herself, the steady pulse of her own heart, the calm rhythm of her breath, and projected them into the chaotic vortex. It was a battle of wills, a struggle against the very essence of discord. The blight shrieked back, trying to overwhelm her, to break her concentration. But Elara held firm, focusing on the pure, underlying harmony. She wove threads of silence and calm, binding the discordant notes, and then, with gentle resolve, began to reintroduce the true melody. She imagined the air heart as a vast celestial instrument, and she, the weaver, was tuning it, carefully, patiently. Slowly, infinitesimally, the chaos began to subside. The shrieks softened, the wails quieted, and the discordant hums began to blend into a more coherent sound. Elara poured more of her energy into the task, feeling her own spirit resonate with the growing harmony of the air heart. She envisioned the blight as a tangled knot of sound, and she was untying it, thread by thread, note by note. Finally, with a tremendous sigh, the air heart's chaotic energy coalesced. The darkness that had clung to its core dissolved, not with a flash, but with a gentle, harmonious hum that filled the cavern. The crystal chimes outside began to sing, their melodies clear and pure, echoing the reawakened song of the air heart. The wind, once a mournful wail, now sang a triumphant chorus. Elara opened her eyes, exhausted but triumphant. The air heart pulsed with a vibrant rhythmic hum, its energy flowing outwards in waves of pure, harmonious sound. She felt the difference instantly. The air was crisp and clear, carrying the scent of distant pines and fresh snow, and her own mind felt lighter, unburdened by the cacophony. Arion soared into the chamber, his amber eyes alight with wonder. The song returns, weaver, my kin rejoice, the sky sings with truth once more. He dipped his head in reverence. You have truly mended the spirit of the peaks. The blight. What is it, Arion? Elara asked, her voice weary but firm. It's in the life currents and it's in the very harmony of the world. What could cause such a thing? Arion landed beside her, his voice a low rumble. The sunken grove nurtures life. The whispering peaks carry spirit and harmony, but both are fed by something deeper, something ancient and primal. The blight, it is a wound that spreads from the deepest roots of Eldoria, from a place where light seldom touches, where the world's slumber is eternal. The ancient texts speak of the veiled abyss, the great chasm beneath the world, where the very foundation of Eldoria rests. He trailed off, his gaze troubled. It is the source, weaver, the source of all life and all magic. If it is corrupted, all of Eldoria will wither. A chill deeper than the mountain air ran through Elara. The wellspring of creation. The very heart of Eldoria. This was it. This was the ultimate task. Take me there, Arion, she said, her voice firm with resolve. The journey to the veiled abyss was the longest and most perilous yet. Arion carried her across vast, desolate plains where the ground was cracked and dry, then through forests where the trees were skeletal and silent, their leaves fallen long before autumn. The blight's presence was palpable here, a heavy, oppressive weight that seemed to drain color and sound from the world. The weave itself felt thin and brittle, like old parchment. As they approached the rumored location of the abyss, the landscape grew utterly barren. The sky was perpetually overcast, and the very air seemed to hum with a discordant, low thrum, like a grinding stone. Arion, usually so strong, flew with labored beats, his usually keen eyes clouded with unease. I can go no further, Elara, he rumbled, landing heavily on a ridge overlooking a vast, dark chasm that seemed to swallow the light. The air here is too thick, too heavy with the blight. It saps my strength, even my spirit. This is the veiled abyss. Its depths are beyond the reach of wings, beyond the song of the wind. You must go alone. Elara looked into the abyss. It was an unfathomable darkness, a wound in the earth that stretched as far as the eye could see. No sound emerged from it, only an eerie, suffocating silence that seemed to press in on her. She felt a profound sense of dread, but also a fierce determination. She had come too far to turn back. Thank you, my friend, she said, stroking Arion's feathered neck. You have carried me far. With a heavy heart, Elara began her descent. The path was treacherous, winding down crumbling ledges and into vast echoing caves. The light from above quickly faded, and soon she relied solely on the faint glow she could coax from the weave, a small pulsing orb of light that danced before her. The air grew heavy and stagnant, tasting of dust and ancient decay. The further she went, the more the weave felt twisted and corrupted, like a frayed, snarled rope. Hours turned into what felt like days as she delved deeper, ever deeper, into the earth. The silence was absolute, broken only by the drip of unseen water and the scuff of her own boots. Strange, phosphorescent fungi clung to the walls, casting eerie, shifting patterns of light and shadow. The blight here was not just a suppression of life or harmony, but an active corruption, a cold, insidious draining. Finally, she reached the very bottom. It was not a single chamber, but a vast, sprawling cavern, so immense that her light orb barely touched its ceiling. In the very center she saw it, the wellspring of creation. It was not a spring of water, but a colossal, swirling vortex of pure raw magic, pulsing with all the colors of the rainbow, yet muted and dulled by a pervasive, inky blackness. It was the heart of Eldoria, the source from which all life, all magic, all spirit flowed. But it was in agony. The inky blackness, the blight, was not merely clinging to it, it was within it, like a deep, cancerous wound, slowly consuming its vibrant energies. And then she saw the source of the blight. It was not a creature, not a villain, but an entity, a being woven from the earth's primal energy that lay curled within the heart of the wellspring. It was immense, like a sleeping mountain, its form vaguely reptilian, covered in scales of obsidian and amethyst. This was the Shadow Heart, a primal guardian, an ancient consciousness that had slumbered since the dawn of Eldoria, maintaining the wellspring's balance. But it was not truly slumbering. It was suffering. From its immense form, tendrils of the blight pulsed outwards, slowly draining the wellspring's light. Its ancient eyes, vast and unfathomably old, were open, but filled with a deep, silent despair. It was not evil, Elira realized with a jolt. It was in pain, and its pain was poisoning the world. A profound sorrow emanated from it, a grief so immense it threatened to crush her spirit. The elder's words returned to her. The weave is life, and life seeks balance. And Ondine's words, an ancient sorrow stirring beneath the world. This was the sorrow. The Shadow Heart was not attacking Eldoria, it was dying, and its dying breath was the blight. Something had wounded it, deep in the forgotten past, and its agony was slowly consuming the world it was meant to protect. Elira knew then what she had to do. This was not a task of mending or cleansing or restoring harmony. This was a task of healing. She had to soothe the ancient pain, to heal the Shadow Heart itself. It was the hardest thing she had ever faced. She approached the Shadow Heart, placing her hands on its vast, cool obsidian scales. The sorrow that radiated from it was almost unbearable, a symphony of grief that resonated with the deepest fears of her own heart. She closed her eyes and reached out with every fiber of her being, weaving not just magic, but compassion, empathy, and pure, unwavering love. She poured her own life force, her own spirit, into the weave, connecting directly with the Shadow Heart's ancient consciousness. She didn't try to force the blight away. Instead, she immersed herself in its sorrow, feeling its ancient wound, its profound loneliness, its silent despair. She wove threads of comfort, of understanding, of connection, directly into the blight itself. She visualized herself as a conduit, a living bridge connecting the suffering Shadow Heart to the vibrant healing energies of the weave that she had painstakingly restored in the sunken grove and the whispering peaks. It was a perilous dance. The blight tried to consume her, to draw her into its despair. She felt her own strength flagging, her spirit nearing its breaking point. But she held on, fueled by the memory of Eldoria's beauty, the vibrant colors of the sunken grove, the pure song of the whispering peaks, the hope of a world reborn. She became the weave, a living tapestry of light and comfort, wrapping around the Shadow Heart's pain. Slowly, miraculously, the immense sorrow began to recede. The inky blackness within the wellspring of creation began to thin, to dissipate, as if a great ancient burden was being lifted. The Shadow Heart, which had seemed like a monument of despair, began to stir, its vast body trembling with what seemed like a sigh of profound relief. Its ancient eyes, once filled with grief, slowly closed, and then, after a long moment, reopened, now gleaming with a soft, warm light, a light of peace and gratitude. As the blight receded, the wellspring of creation roared to life. The muted colors exploded into a breathtaking kaleidoscope of pure, vibrant light, pulsing with immense power and joy. Waves of invigorating energy surged outwards, washing over Elira, healing her exhaustion, filling her with a boundless sense of renewal. The immense cavern, once a place of despair, now hummed with the joyous song of creation. The shadow heart, now healed and at peace, gently extended a massive, scaled head towards her, nudging her with a warmth that resonated with the very core of the earth. Elara felt a deep, telepathic message. "Thank you, Weaver. You have awakened me from my ancient sorrow." The balance is restored. Eldoria breathes again. "Untis. Eshienao. Cass." Elara returned to the surface, emerging from the veiled abyss into a world transformed. The sky was no longer overcast but a brilliant, boundless blue. The air was fresh and sweet, carrying the scent of blooming flowers from distant meadows. The withered trees in the barren lands were sprouting new, vibrant green leaves. Birds sang, their melodies clear and joyous, and she could feel the weave pulsing with robust, unwavering life beneath her feet. Arian soared down to meet her, his feathers gleaming, his eyes bright with happiness. "Elara, the blight, it is gone," the world sings again. "What have you done?" Elara smiled, a profound, peaceful smile that reached her eyes. "I healed a sorrow, Arian, an ancient sorrow that had forgotten how to breathe." She looked out over the rejuvenated landscape, a world now vibrant and alive, its colors richer, its sounds clearer, its magic stronger than she had ever known. The fate of Eldoria had indeed rested upon her shoulders, and she had succeeded. She was no longer just Elara, the girl from the village, but Elara, the weaver, a guardian of Eldoria, bound to its pulse, its life, its very heart. Her journey was over, yet in a way, it had just begun. The weave hummed within her, no longer a burden but a part of her, guiding her, connecting her to every living thing. She knew now that her path would be one of constant vigilance, of nurturing and protecting the magic of Eldoria. But as she stood there, bathed in the golden light of the setting sun, feeling the vibrant breath of the world around her, she knew she was ready. And deep in her heart, she felt the quiet, profound joy of a world that had been saved, now ready to dream again.